Hello again, everyone. I wanted to make a follow-up video to an article I posted a few weeks ago on the Big Daddy Linux website blog, and this was about the EndeavourOS holiday surprise. They released their net installer version, and what this allows you to do is select the desktop that you would like to install, any desktop that they have listed here. So we've got the base XFCE, Mate, KDE Plasma, GNOME, Cinnamon, Budgie, Deepin, LXQT. So all of their supported desktops you can install from the net installer ISO. You can also install the standard XFCE desktop that they provide by default, and you make the choice between online and offline installer as you go through the installation process. So I think my article does it justice, and I've got some good screenshots and all of that, but I thought maybe just taking you through a video of installing it might be helpful. And also I just wanted to make sure folks were aware this was out there and that it is a great option for getting a mostly stock Arch-based system with the desktop of your choice. So I'm going to do this in a virtual machine just for the sake of creating a video, although I have installed this on hardware and it works perfectly fine. And when I say perfectly fine, I'm also meaning that this was on my Dell XPS laptop with hybrid graphics, and the graphics worked fine, no problems there, and everything just worked the way you'd expect it to. The first thing I like to do if I'm going to run this net install is to update the app first. So let's jump out there and see if there are any updates to this. All right, I'm going to run this installer here, and this is where it's going to give you your choice between offline and online. If I chose offline, it's going to give me the standard Endeavour XFCE desktop. Basically what you're seeing here on the live session, this is what you would end up with as the install. But what I want to do is the online installer. And the key difference there is that when this fires up, I go through the same process of setting my locale, setting my location and time zone, keyboard. I'm going to go ahead and erase the disk and make sure you choose your swap. I'm going to do no hibernate, so it's going to create a 2 gig swap partition for me. And this is where you'll see the difference between the offline and the online installer. Offline, you won't see the screen. It's just obviously going to install the XFCE desktop. Online, now I've got my choice here. And let's see. You know what? I'm going to try the GNOME desktop. Now you see, you can select, if you select the uppermost or the topmost checkbox, it's going to select everything for you. But if for some reason you wanted to, let's say you don't want the Arc GTK theme, you don't want the firmware update. So they've given you some granularity here in terms of which packages you can choose which ones to install or not install. You also see at the top if you got base, devel, and common packages, and then also NVIDIA drivers at the bottom, accessibility tools, printing support. So there are other non-desktop choices as well. So we're going to go ahead and leave those set. Click next and just fill in our user information. Click next, give you an overview of what you've chosen to do on your system and install, and then it will run through the installer routine, and I'll go ahead and just let this part run fast and pick it back up when it's done. Okay, well that's all done. Took, I would say, somewhere between like 10 and 12 minutes. I wasn't looking at the clock. I'm sure the video will tell the time. We're all done. Go ahead and click done here, and I could have checked the reboot there, but I just thought I would do it this way. Let's go ahead and reboot. Actually, it wants to shut down, and let's get the disk out of there. Although you can leave the disk in, it will prompt you with an option to boot from the hard drive, but I'll go ahead and take it out. Okay, so here's our GNOME desktop. Got GNOME, GNOME Classic, and GNOME on Xorg. I'll just leave it on Wayland for now, and there you go. So now we get our after install tasks, and it's also saying, do you want to change the wallpaper? And this is going to set the Endeavour GNOME wallpaper, so I'll say yes. And so it sets a nice EndeavourOS GNOME specific wallpaper for you. And other than that, this is a completely stock Arch GNOME install with a few packages from Endeavour. And if you were to look at the Endeavour release announcement, so let's go take that. And so they do mention that, I thought it was in here. Yes, except for our in-house development, Reflector Auto, EOS Welcome, and EOS Update Notifier, the rest of the packages are coming directly from the Arch repos or the AUR. So not customized or modified package versions in our own repo. We're still very close to Arch, and that's definitely true. So one of the key differences I would say between, let's say, Endeavour and Manjaro. Manjaro gives you a very customized desktop environment, and there's also a lot of Manjaro specific packages. They have their own update manager, and they're also pulling from their own repos. And depending on how you look at that, that can be an advantage. But if you wanted something that was closer to Arch itself, then I would say that Endeavour would be a better choice, because here I am on a very stock GNOME desktop with, again, just these few packages, and I'm able to to basically jump right into an Arch-based install. They also don't have many applications installed. They have some GNOME-specific stuff installed. You don't see a lot of additional packages like you would in, let's say, Manjaro, where they've got a curated list of things that they've already installed for you. This is much more focused specifically on GNOME. The other thing I wanted to mention is this is a very stock experience for this desktop, but I know one of the things that the Endeavor team is working on is they do want to give you the option to have a more customized desktop experience. So they do want to apply some theming. Here again, they've just shown us the EndeavourOS wallpaper, but they want to provide some custom icons and theming and things like that. Maybe even some extensions for GNOME and some stuff like that. So I haven't seen any of it yet. I personally like the idea that I can have a very stock experience. So hopefully what they give you through that process is the ability to choose, and that whenever you are selecting the install process, you do have the ability to select that as an option. Let's say here, when you're going through here, that you can actually say whether or not to include their theming or not. The other thing I do want to show is the welcome, and particularly the post-install, the after-install tasks. There's some nice things in here that normally you would have to do if you were doing this on just a stock Arch system that you would be doing from the command line or following the Arch wiki, and that's fine. But it's nice to have these shortcuts here. So updating the mirrors is a very nice touch where I can select my country, what types of mirrors I want, and then say okay. So as part of that mirror, it just popped up and showed me which mirrors it's going to use. Go ahead and save that. And then obviously I need permission to do that. Updating the system, detecting system issues, if there's a new release, display manager. So all of these shortcut type things that are going to help users get up and running with a new system, the types of tweaks that you're going to make probably once and not have to make very often, if ever again, but getting set up and making it easy for people to do that without having to go and do extra work. And then also some nice things, just a couple curated things here where I can add an Office, a LibreOffice, Chromium, some things like that. There was a lot of build up to this release. There was some challenge getting it out on time. Initially, they had thought it was going to be out in November. Took a little longer. And you know what? That's okay, because what they delivered is something that's functional. It works well. I haven't seen any issues with it personally. I've been looking at forums and things like that and haven't seen any issues, standout issues, more than what you'd normally see. It's really amazing to me, again, that they were able to get this out when they did just before the holidays, and also that the community really pitched in to make that happen, and that the Endeavor team themselves have really put just a tremendous amount of effort into this. It's one of those things now that I just think belongs in the conversation for anyone asking, well, what are the good alternatives out there? What's out there in the Linux realm right now in terms of what are interesting releases, what are things that are, useful, functional, and just worth looking at, worth using. And I definitely think Endeavor, not that it wasn't before, but this now, the utility of having the net installer, of being able to select your desktop environment when you're installing, really, I think, unlocks sort of the secret sauce, the magic, however you want to classify that. This really just puts Endeavor on that level of all of those other distros that have some special aspect to them that make them worth looking at, worth using, worth being involved with. And I just feel like they've elevated what they've already done, which was great, and just now taking it to a level where it's absolutely something that if someone said, hey, I want to try Arch, I'm not necessarily all that interested in doing it from scratch, and I would much rather just have an easier way to do it and something that has some support behind it and a community behind it. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend Endeavor. I mean, in a heartbeat. It's gotten to that point. The people behind it are committed to doing it. The community's strong, and this just has all coalesced with this release. I could sit here and go on, but I do have a great amount of respect for the developers, the community, for everyone that's involved, and hopefully this video inspires you to take a look at it if you haven't. And I, as always, appreciate you watching. Any questions, comments, anything like that, please leave them below. If you like the video, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.